Take a look at this from Daily Mail. Democrats demand a national security investigation into Saudi Arabia's stake in Twitter under Elon Musk. Senator says kingdom wants to repress political speech and impact U.S. politics. Boy, was that fast. The Saudi prince has had a major stake in Twitter for a very long time. And not a single one of these psychopaths batted an eye until now with Elon Musk taking over. There was a tweet and they said, how long until all of a sudden the Democrats, the Butma private company Democrats, change their mind and say we need regulation and insight and oversight into this? Well, here you go.
Yeah, Robert Reich immediately with the Elon thing, like lit him on, like not, but just set him off. Like Rob, all of a sudden now he's screaming about Elon being an oligarch and we need to break it up. Like he never mentioned that. I mean, never.
Like Jack Dorsey wasn't.
Yeah. Wait until they find out about TikTok in China. Wait until they find out about Facebook and the Department of Homeland Security. As we just found out about right now. Again, this is clearly an attempt to punish Elon Musk as he is presenting an opportunity to fight back against all of this nonsense and provide the best ideas to rise to the top. That's an idea that's scaring the crap on the individuals who have a monopoly on ignorance and violence, and that, of course, is the state.
Absolutely. I mean, the Saudi Public Investment Fund, they've they've invested in this Live Golf Tour recently. They were early investors in Uber. The PIF has their hands in a lot of American companies. That's not really a new thing. But I found it interesting that the DOJ launched a criminal investigation into Tesla last week. Coincidentally, the week of the closing of the Twitter deal, into Tesla's full self-driving capabilities. So I thought that timing was a bit more than suspect. That the week the Twitter deal closes, the DOJ launches not a civil investigation, a criminal investigation. With potential jail time for Tesla executives. Yep.
Can I just ask everybody if they have their shot glasses ready so I can say Civil War now? There you go. Should have given you a second. We have this tweet from Chris Murphy. It says, today I'm requesting the Committee on Foreign Investment, which reviews acquisitions of U.S. businesses by foreign buyers, to conduct an investigation into the national security implications of Saudi Arabia's purchase of Twitter. He already had the stake in Twitter. And the reason why I bring up those magic words is because when the Democrats overlook or defend things like foreign influence in our social media platforms, when it favors them, and then seek to weaponize the U.S. government or the DOJ when all of a sudden that power shifts, we can't function that way. It's not possible for this country to exist if one political party is actively weaponizing law enforcement and the weight of the federal government to target their political rivals, and that's the only way it ever goes. Eventually, confidence shatters, and it doesn't have to be civil war like people charging at each other. That's not how the first civil war started. It can be a peaceful divorce.
Would you consider what Gandhi did with India a civil war when they just stopped saying, sorry, Britain, we're passive disobedience, we're not following
It could
anymore.
be that.
My beef with the national divorce crowd, I'm open to that concept, but I think that fundamentally misunderstands the nature of the radical left. They're never going to let red states just go off and do their own thing. The left, they get off on rubbing your nose in it. They get off on lording it over you. As we're seeing now, like just look at one example out of many. I mean, look at the way that the gay pride movement has evolved over the past 20, 30, 40 years. It started as, do what you want in your own bedroom, to civil unions, to gay marriage, to the pride movement, to transgender, to grooming children. It's about rubbing it in the faces of their political enemies. And so I think that the concept that we're going to have this very civil national divorce, I think that's a bit naive.
Nothing civil, but at the same time, I agree with your point. There are statists that love to tell people what to do. But when you have a centralized, big federal bureaucratic government, you have a vessel to allow them to do that. And I think we're seeing the results of that. And I think we're seeing such divisiveness, so many people fighting each other because of other people pushing their ideas onto other individuals. That's why I think a decentralization, a moving away from a big federal government and enforcing state governments could be something like a peaceful divorce that could eventually happen in a way where it's not really a divorce, but at the same time, we don't have other people forcing ideas onto other people because there's no vessel in order to do it adequately. And that's why I would always argue, because I am for, a peaceful divorce, but a peaceful divorce in a way that doesn't rely on the federal government telling states what to do, states deciding for themselves what they should be doing themselves. A limited federal government.
Regarding this Saudi news, so this is the same Saudi investment that was in Twitter before the acquisition.
Yep.
And
so here's what happened. This guy had a stake in Twitter. Elon went to existing major shareholders and said, will you keep your stake in so that I can acquire this company and turn it around? At first, he was like, nah, get out of here. Then he was like, okay.
This is, by the way, the same Saudi prince that has an investment with tens of millions of dollars with Bill Gates. Why isn't Bill Gates being investigated by the federal government with his Saudi Arabian collusion, especially with his Chinese collusion, especially with his energy companies, especially with his nuclear companies and his technology that's helping the Chinese build new weapons? Why isn't he being investigated for that? That there's a lot more at stake with that than Elon Musk having a platform where people could now finally talk to each other. There's a big difference between the two, and obviously this is a clear action just to try to hurt Elon Musk here.
Exactly. I mean, if you want to outlaw all foreign investment in American companies, yeah, let's have that conversation. But it's the selective enforcement that Senator Murphy. I mean, obviously, they're trying to, attack a political enemy. As they see Musk is now a political enemy of the left.
do you think it would be right just to ask the Saudi prince to recuse himself from the stock holdings of the American companies? I mean, in general, you think that's a wise move?
He's invested in a lot of things in the United States, by the way.
Right.
And I mean, are we going to single out this one guy?
Yeah, I don't want to single out this one guy.
I would say the Chinese. I mean, like, there is no universe in which the Chinese Communist Party should have any stake in American companies, period. American farmland, American companies, like, we should treat them the way we used to treat the USSR. During the Cold War and before that, there was essentially zero trade relationship between the American government and the American marketplace and the Soviet marketplace.
I think there could be some trade, but probably a lot of sanctions.
Well, are they an enemy or not? I mean, that's a decision we have to make.
Especially with the Uyghur camps. That's why I think there's, my fear is that sanctions could eventually lead to escalation, but do we just ignore? That's the tough thing. You got the interventionist versus anti-interventionist, and the lightest form of it is still like, hey, you're doing a thing we don't like, so we're going to sanction you.
But I'm telling you, in Arkansas, like rural, deep red, God's country, Arkansas, we have a lot of Chinese-owned land in our state. We have a lot of Chinese oligarchs and Chinese government investment in our state. We had a Chinese native who was a professor at the University of Arkansas who was convicted of espionage on behalf of the CCP. I mean, that's the University of Arkansas.
Let me ask you, why should any American citizen have to compete with the finances of Chinese oligarchs? If you're in Arkansas, if you're in any state, and you want to buy a plot of land to start a business, raise a family, why are you competing in the market with a foreign country?
It's a no-brainer. I mean, that shouldn't even be a debate.
Yeah.
But again, like the free market, we take these things to the logical extreme when it makes no rational sense.
I feel like if a guy in like 1989 was found committing espionage against the United States, he was a professor.
Yes.
Was he a Chinese national?
He was a Chinese national at the University of Arkansas.
That would have been global. Yeah, that would have been like global news. It would have been on.
Got very little coverage.
If they wanted to create animosity towards the Chinese, which right now I don't think they want to create animosity towards the Chinese. It seems like they're very in cahoots that they want to sell Taiwan to the Chinese, which, by the way, you could always sell Eastern Ukraine to the Russians if you really want to go deep, and just kind of peacefully sell out. I don't know. Maybe
I don't think it's as simple
better
as that.
than conflict.
So I've always been concerned about the Saudi prince's stake in Twitter. The difference between then and now is then you had a public company where he was pushing his influence. Now you have Elon in full control. There's still a question of whether or not this Saudi prince is saying to Elon, like, I gave you some of this money, so I expect favor, something like that. So the funny thing is, look, I don't trust this Democrat to actually have a legitimate investigation, but I think we should know exactly to what degree this Saudi prince has influence on Twitter.
Well, did Elon not pay the $44 billion then?
He got debt financing. He had other stuff. So this Saudi prince had this like nearly $2 billion piece of Twitter. He said, hold on to that, but give me control of the company. Basically like loaning Elon, basically.
He might get a board seat of some kind.
Elon made himself the sole board member, I guess.
For now.
For now.
He said that's temporary.
Yeah, he tweeted today that it's not going to be for long that he is just the sole guy in charge here.
Right.
I wouldn't want that pressure either.
Sure. But, and that's a question. Like, I mean, should we allow a foreign national to be, a board member of even an American private corporation? Are we serious about this or not?
I don't think it's wise to to have foreign nationals, if they can't run for office, to own our social networks that we use probably more than...
Especially how we've just demonstrated they're not even like free enterprise private companies anyway. They're federal government proxies.
Yeah.
Are you against African American owned businesses like Twitter? Ian, is that what you're trying to say here? Is that what you guys are trying to say?
You caught me. You caught me. No, I fully support African American owned businesses like Twitter.
I think it's a very
It's a tough.
complex.
It's so
it's a very
complex.
complex landscape.
It's not easy. I'm not
because
saying it's easy.
I'm all for the free market, but essentially we don't have a free market. We have socialism for the super rich. We have government intervention with tax incentives, with subsidies, with them giving money from the poorest people and giving it to the biggest corporations that pay off the politicians. So we don't have a free market system. If we did, I would think that this system would, of course, fix itself naturally with incentives and better business practices and better competition, but we don't have any of that. So I think before making any laws, first we got to get the government out of business, and then business will fix
There's
itself.
no real free market. It's a double-speak term. Like, it's always been controlled either by the people with the money or the governments.
Not when Andrew Jackson ruled, though.
Well, it was probably the oligarchs at that point, like the
Well,
Vanderbilt.
there's I mean,
pre-Vanderbilt.
Robber barons, allegedly.
yeah.
You
They
know,
call it free market to appease the masses, and they're like, "Don't worry, it's free." But when you realize what's happening, it's controlled by the.
well, the same with communism, right?
Yeah, but
For
look,
sure.
look. The idea of a free market is, I don't think anyone, if you believe in a utopian view of things, you're probably wrong. But in the general sense of a free market, it means that someone from the lowest class can find a way to make money, trade, and eventually become the upper echelon and gain significant control over that system. So it's upward mobility in a system.
as opposed to like a centralized market, or caste system.
Yeah, whenever you have the government not involved in private business, businesses expand, but also quality of life expands. But whenever the government centralizes a lot of the stuff, as we've seen throughout history, this is not always the case, but correlation historically says less government, more economic freedom, more prosperity for human beings. And then the opposite of that is also true historically.
Correct, because the free market, I mean, really all it does is just harness, human nature.
And people's ability to fix their problems.
People acting in their own self-interest.
Yes.
And really I'm not attacking the free market per se. I'm attacking people arbitraging the system, gaming it to essentially be, rent-seeking behavior. I mean, that's what these people are doing by centralizing power and gaming the free market to their own advantage. That's what I'm attacking.
But they're not gaining a free market. They're going to the government and be like, we want to make sure we have no liability when we give you this product. We want to make sure that no one could sue us if we hurt people when you help us promote for us and do our PR in making sure people take our product. That's not a free market at all.
No, that's an aberration. It would originate with like two guys selling apples, and they're like, "We're going to compete. Whoever wants to buy my apples at a cheaper price will do this."
Yeah.
Then eventually, the two apple sellers get together and they collude, and they're like, "Yo, let's set the price of apples."
Yeah.
So then the government comes in, they're like, "No, we need a free market. We're going to make sure no one violates the law." And then the government sets the laws and sits there as an arbiter. Except now what you're saying, they're like giving people subsidies. And
Not just that, the federal government is selling a product for the benefit of big pharma, selling it, shilling it.
Well,
And then using their monopoly of violence in a way to get protection no matter what happens in this
any
scenario.
liability.
Any liability, which is crazy. That's not a free market.
Guys, I just want to give a shout out, considering the episode and the subject matter, to all of the feds who are watching and seething. And feel free to, set the record straight. If this stuff is not correct or whatever, you guys can send emails and send information. Project Veritas, I'm sure, would be really interested to hear what's really going on behind the scenes. So thanks
I
for
bet
watching.
a lot of people are out of control in their heads. Like, what do we do? I want to preserve American constitutionalism. We are globalizing, and
They
it's
clearly
happening
don't.
like a snowball. And they're like, what do we do? Do I just go along with what's already been in place? Like, are we coagulating with the Chinese, becoming an uber state?
They don't believe in the Constitution. They believe that this country was founded not in 1776, but in 1619. They believe a whole bunch of insane historical manipulations, lies, misinterpretations to justify their weird cult. That's the scary thing. So when they're like, in the meeting report from the story from The Intercept, they're saying things like people lack critical thinking skills these days, and that's a problem. It's funny because these people writing it are the example of those who lack critical thinking skills. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself what the next step in your actions is? Like, you do a thing, what happens next? They clearly don't know. They don't think about it. They just think they're smarter than you. They read garbage fake news, believe it, and then they say, how come none of these people believe the garbage that I believe? Oh, they must be stupid. I know. Let's censor information and manipulate the public opinion. These people are just not smart enough. It's that quote. I always forget who the guy is, but he said something like, if the idea is that people aren't smart enough to govern themselves, so a smarter person, needs to control them, what makes that person smarter than anybody else? Same problem.
Well, it's the old C.S. Lewis quote. I mean, he said, I'm butchering it, but he essentially said, I don't fear the tyrant who wants to torture me. I fear the tyrant who wants to do something for my own good. And that's what the left is really doing, because I think deep in their hearts, you hook them up to an EKG lie detector, they would tell you they're doing this for our own good. They're censoring this for our own good because we lack their critical thinking skills that they have in spades. And so that's what's so terrifying, is because I think obviously there are some who are sadistic and just want to hurt people, but I think there is a large portion of the left that are truly doing this from, in their own warped perspective, a sense of justice or a sense of do-gooderism. And that to me is so insidious, because in their hearts they think they are helping you by crushing your freedom.
That's the low-level guys, in my opinion. I think there's sociopaths on top that are truly calling the shots.
But that's a lot. It's an army of low-level guys.
Bloomberg said, tax the poor. You guys remember this?
Yep.
In that video, he said, because they're too stupid, I'm paraphrasing, but too stupid to know it's good for them. So if we take their money from them and then tell them what they can buy, they'll be better off. Like when he taxed sugary drinks.
Right.
Look, I think sugary drinks are really bad for you. Do I think people should be allowed to have them? Sure. The problem is a culture where people understand, don't drink a liter of cola with your burger. But Bloomberg's solution is no one should tax them, punish them for doing it. That's the dystopian authoritarian ideology of these people. Now you see him and his ilk and how they take to the rest of these platforms. They think, you know what? I'm smarter than you, so I'll be in control. And the reality is they're not. They're not.
And that's how they would approach national divorce in my mind. They would say, we can't let them go their separate ways because we have to help them. They would just go harm themselves or harm others.
I think there are a small percentage of people that need to be guided, that if they see two opposing views, that they'll fall for it. But there's a huge amount of people that are discernible, that can tell, like, you give me the Hunter Biden story and the evidence that shows not. Well, those people I think actually wanted to hide that story.
But they did. There was polls showing that it would have swayed and impacted the election.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like 7%. It was a decisive censorship.
Yeah, it would have changed our current political landscape.
So this is the manipulation of public perception and support. The government going to big tech. And look, let me just, come on, guys. You know they're going to the media. I can tell you this definitively. Yeah. How about this? I was in Antalya, Turkey, I think is the name of the city. Is that what it is? Someone want to look it up. It's like a Russian resort town, I guess. And I was there with the guys from Vice. We are hanging out at, they were doing a talk. It was all these rich people. It was an organization called WPP, what is it, like Wire and Plastic Products, something like that, who they own a major portion in all of these companies around the world. And the CEO of Vice explained how after they went to North Korea, they got a call from the State Department and they had a conversation. They talked about all this stuff. I don't think Shane said anything about them telling them what to report on, but they're in direct communication over the stories they're doing. And he said something like, he told them, like, you got to talk to this guy in North Korea because he was Western educated. There's like an opportunity. So look, man, birds of a feather flock together, rich and powerful. It doesn't matter if you're in government. It doesn't matter if you run a big company. Powerful elites want to hang out with powerful elites. That's why they have big conferences every year and they all hang out with each other in secret.
Mm-hmm. The story that we read in the beginning of today's broadcast, extremely important and really should make people aware of the larger manipulation that the government is conducting behind the closed doors. But if they're doing this to big tech social media, what do you think they're doing to the corporate media? What do you think?
I'll tell you. Yeah. You may think your favorite reporter is actually a CIA agent or an FBI agent or the DHS. No. That's not how it works. The way it works is there will be a reporter, young, 24, fresh out of college, gets a job writing for like a blog and they're doing, blog articles or something. Then all of a sudden, they publish this big scoop. Their bosses are like, whoa, how'd you get this story? And say, I have a source. Within a few years, they go from having only a few thousand followers on Twitter to reporting on major breaking stories about Russia, about social media manipulation, Russian disinformation, seemingly just dumping evidence appearing on MSNBC and these other channels. All of a sudden they say, look, we know that Donald Trump did this, that, and this, fueling the Russiagate narrative. The reality is there's a young journalist who is stupid, and government actors and agents say, hey, I'm going to be a source for you. Take a look at this story. And then the young journalist gets all excited. Whoa, this is a huge scoop. They go to their boss. I got a source in the government who just gave me this document. And they go, whoa, that's an official U.S. government document. How did you get that? I have a source. How much money do you want? Next thing you know, they're being put on TV. They're getting a big salary bump, and they're major stars in news organizations. Why? Because government actors choose them to be their conduit for releasing the stories they want released.
And it's not just like that. It's a lot more insidious, especially when you look at the 1975 church committee meetings that literally talked about how the intelligence agencies were at the head of the major broadcasting companies deciding what stories they were going to cover and not cover. They were inside of the newsroom. There was another famous journalist award-winning German reporter who worked for some of the biggest publications in the world, Udo Ofketti, who came out and said essentially they would send me articles that I would just put my name on that they would write for me. I was essentially just regurgitating what the intelligence agencies wanted me to say. He died under, of course, mysterious circumstances. But again, this shows you that the government has the corporate media, and it's obvious. You look at their reporting; it's not reporting; it's just an establishment press release. They're not reporting on anything. They're essentially trying to set up mind control in a way that works to their benefit, and that is clear as day when you watch the corporate media. It's not as clear on social media, but it's becoming clearer by the day, especially with the big reveal that we just found out about today when it came to the DHS.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.